The sickening thud of boots against flesh echoed through the evening air as three teenagers surrounded the helpless horse. Thunder, a gentle giant who had helped countless troubled children find their way, now stood trembling as cruel laughter mixed with the sound of each brutal kick. What these boys didn't know was that their act of senseless violence was being captured by the ranch's security cameras, and that James Mitchell, the owner of Redemption Ranch, was watching it unfold in real time. He wasn't just any farmer. He was a former youth counselor who had spent 20 years rehabilitating troubled teens through work with horses. Now, as he witnessed this horrific scene, his mind wasn't on punishment. It was on redemption. These boys had just kicked the wrong horse on the wrong farm, and their lives were about to change forever. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Redemption Ranch sprawled across 40 acres of rolling Kentucky bluegrass, its white fences standing like sentinels against the golden sunrise. To most passers-by, it looked like any other horse farm dotting the countryside. But those who knew better understood that these fence posts held up more than just wood and wire. They marked the boundaries of a place where broken spirits came to heal. James Mitchell stood at his kitchen window, coffee cup growing cold in his weathered hands as he watched Thunder in the paddock. The big bay horse moved stiffly this morning, the aftermath of last night's attack evident in every painful step. 20 years of working with troubled youth hadn't hardened James's heart. If anything, each year had made it more susceptible to the pain he witnessed in both humans and animals. At 53, James carried his years in the smile lines around his eyes and the silver threading through his dark hair. His broad shoulders, still strong from daily farm work, slumped slightly as he set down his untouched coffee and headed for the door. The morning feeding wouldn't wait, even if his heart was heavy. "Easy there, old friend," he murmured, approaching Thunder with measured steps. The horse's ears flicked forward at his voice, but James didn't miss the slight flinch that accompanied the movement. Trust, once broken, took time to rebuild. He knew this better than most. James had come to this understanding the hard way. Before buying Redemption Ranch, he'd spent 15 years as a youth counselor in Louisville, watching kids cycle through a system that seemed designed to punish rather than heal. He'd seen too many young souls hardened by traditional correction methods, too many spirits broken by an approach that focused on consequences without understanding causes. The idea for Redemption Ranch had come to him after working with a particularly troubled teen who transformed after spending time with an old therapy horse. James had mortgaged everything he owned to buy this place, converting it from a failing cattle operation into a sanctuary where horses and humans could heal each other. Thunder had been one of his first rescues, a former show horse discarded after an injury ended his career. The bay gelding had arrived angry and defensive, much like the teens James worked with. But over time, Thunder had become the heart of the ranch's rehabilitation program. Something about his gentle persistence, his willingness to trust again, despite past hurts, reach kids in ways that human counselors couldn't. "We'll get through this, boy," James promised, carefully examining the bruises blooming across Thunder's flanks. The kicks had been vicious, but thankfully nothing appeared broken. The real damage, James knew, would be psychological. Thunder had always been especially sensitive to human energy. It was what made him so effective with troubled kids. This betrayal of trust could set their program back significantly. The sound of gravel crunching under tires drew James's attention. Sarah Chen, his program coordinator and only full-time employee, was arriving early as usual. Her ancient Toyota kicked up dust as it rolled to a stop near the barn. "I got your message," she called, hurrying over. At 32, Sarah brought both professional expertise as a licensed therapist and genuine compassion to their work. "How bad is it?" James gestured to Thunder's flanks. Physical damage could have been worse, but you know how he is with trust." Sarah nodded, her dark eyes troubled as she gently stroked Thunder's neck. "Have you identified the kids from the security footage?" "Yeah." James ran a hand through his hair. "Local boys, Marcus Jenkins, Devon Taylor, and Tyler Rodriguez. All 15, all with records of escalating behavioral issues at school. Devon's father is a regular at O'Malley's bar. Tyler's mother works 3 jobs to keep food on the table, and Marcus," he sighed, "Marcus's situation is complicated. Foster care, 3rd placement this year." "You've already done your homework," Sarah observed, though she didn't sound surprised. It was typical of James to look beyond the surface, to start understanding rather than condemning. "Called in some favors at the youth center. These aren't bad kids, Sarah. They're hurt kids acting out, the kind we're supposed to be helping, not prosecuting." Sarah studied him carefully. "You have that look, James, the one you get when you're about to suggest something either brilliant or crazy." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Maybe both. We've got 2 options here. We can press charges, let the system do its thing. They'll get juvenile detention, probably some community service. They'll come out angrier, more convinced the world is against them. Or, Sarah prompted, though her expression suggested she already knew where this was heading. Or we give them exactly what they need. Consequences that come with understanding, responsibility that leads to healing. We make them part of Thunder's rehabilitation." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, absently stroking Thunder's neck as she considered. "It's risky, the liability alone, and after what they did, can we trust them around the horses? We can if we do it right. Structure, supervision, clear boundaries. But most importantly, we show them the impact of their actions, not through punishment, but through healing. Let them see firsthand what their choices did to Thunder, then give them the chance to make it right." The morning sun had climbed higher, painting the paddock in warm light. Thunder, despite his injuries, had relaxed slightly under Sarah's gentle touch. James watched them, seeing in this small moment the possibility of what could be. "We'll need to convince their parents," Sarah said finally, "and the school board, probably the juvenile officer too. Already working on it. Judge Reynolds owes me a favor from that program we ran last summer, and I think once the parents understand the alternative, you never give up, do you?" Sarah's tone held equal parts exasperation and admiration. James looked at Thunder, then across the ranch where other horses were beginning to stir in the morning light. Each one had their own story of recovery, of trust rebuilt and hope restored. "You know what I always say. Everyone deserves a chance to rewrite their story, even the ones who seem to be working hardest to destroy it." Sarah nodded, a determined smile forming. "All right then, where do we start?" "First, we document everything. Thunder's injuries, the security footage, all of it. We'll need it to show the seriousness of what happened. Then we start making calls. These boys thought they were just kicking a horse. Instead, they're about to get a masterclass in consequences, compassion, and the kind of change that only comes from facing your mistakes head on." As if in response, Thunder nickered softly, pressing his nose against James's chest. Even injured, even hurting, the horse hadn't lost his capacity for connection. James only hoped they could help these boys find the same resilience within themselves. Marcus Jenkins slouched in the hard plastic chair outside the principal's office, his dark hoodie pulled low over his face. At 15, he'd already learned to wear his anger like armor, keeping the world at arm's length. 3rd foster home this year, and it wasn't even October. He absently rubbed his knuckles, still raw from yesterday's fight, not the horse incident, but another in an endless string of confrontations that marked his days. 2 chairs down, Devon Taylor stared at his phone, thumbs moving rapidly as he texted updates to someone. His designer clothes and carefully styled hair stood in sharp contrast to the tension in his shoulders. Son of the local car dealership owner, Devon had everything money could buy, except his father's attention, which was usually divided between the business and the bottom of a whiskey bottle. Tyler Rodriguez occupied the chair between them, his worn work boots scuffing patterns in the dust on the linoleum floor. Dark circles under his eyes testified to too many nights helping his mother clean office buildings after her regular shift at the diner. At 14, he was already familiar with the weight of adult responsibilities and the bitterness that came with watching other kids live easier lives. "My old man's gonna kill me," Devon muttered, finally putting his phone away. "Says he's not. Paying to get me out of this one. At least you've got someone to be disappointed in you," Marcus shot back, his voice carrying years of foster care cynicism. "My placement worker's probably already filling out transfer papers." Tyler said nothing, but his silence spoke volumes. His mother would cry, and that was worse than any punishment the school could devise. He'd promised her he was staying out of trouble, focusing on his studies. Now this. The incident with the horse had started like most stupid ideas do, with boredom and a dare. They'd been walking home from another mind-numbing day at Riverside High, taking the back road past Redemption Ranch. Devon had been showing off, talking big about how his father was probably going to buy him a car for his upcoming birthday. "Bet you won't even drive it," Marcus had taunted, his own frustration seeking an outlet. "You'll just sit in it in your driveway, posting pictures like you do with everything else." Devon's face had reddened. "I'm not scared of anything." "Prove it," Tyler had chimed in, his own troubles making him eager for distraction. "That horse over there, bet you won't go pet it." What started as a simple dare escalated quickly. The horse, Thunder, they would later learn, had approached them calmly, friendly even. But something in that gentle trust had triggered a darkness in Marcus, a need to destroy something good before it could reject him. He'd kicked first, and the others, caught up in the moment and their own demons, had joined in. Now they sat outside the principal's office, the weight of their actions finally settling on their shoulders. The security footage had been clear, their identities unmistakable. Expulsion was the least of their worries. Animal cruelty charges were being discussed. "You think they'll really press charges?" Tyler asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "They better," Marcus replied bitterly. "Otherwise, what was the point of all this? Just another day in our screwed-up lives." Devon's phone buzzed again. "Dad's lawyer says we're looking at juvenile detention if they push it, plus fines, probation, all that stuff." The sound of approaching footsteps made them all tense. But instead of the principal, a tall man with silver-streaked dark hair appeared in the hallway. James Mitchell's presence filled the space, though not in the intimidating way they'd expected. There was something in his eyes, not anger exactly, but a kind of determined compassion that was almost worse. "Boys," he said simply, looking at each of them in turn, "I think it's time we had a talk about choices, consequences, and chances." Marcus straightened slightly, defiance warring with something else in his expression. "You the horse guy? Look, if you're here to press charges, just do it. We've all been through this before." "Actually," James replied, pulling up a chair to sit facing them, "I'm here to offer you something different, something that might be harder than juvenile detention, but also more worthwhile." Devon scoffed, but there was uncertainty beneath his bravado. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," James said, leaning forward slightly, "that you have two paths in front of you. One leads where you're already heading, deeper into a system that's more interested in punishment than change. The other—" He paused, making sure he had their full attention. "The other leads to my ranch, where you'll work harder than you've ever worked, face things you've been running from, and maybe, just maybe, find out who you really are beneath all that anger." Tyler looked up for the first time, really studying James's face. "Why would you give us a chance after what we did?" Because someone once gave me a chance when I needed it. Because I've spent 20 years watching kids like you get lost in a system that doesn't understand them. And because that horse you hurt, he's living proof that trust can be rebuilt, that mistakes don't have to define you. Marcus pulled his hoodie back slightly, revealing eyes that had seen too much for their years. And if we say no, then I press charges and you face the full consequences of your actions through official channels. This isn't about avoiding responsibility. It's about finding a better way to face it. The boys exchanged glances, years of distrust warring with a desperate need for something to change. In that moment, they were just kids, scared, angry, lost kids who had finally hit a crossroads they couldn't ignore. "How long?" Devon asked. "Finally, 6 months," James replied. "Every day after school, plus weekends. You'll help rehabilitate Thunder, learn about horse care, and do the hard work of facing yourselves. Your parents, or guardians," he added, looking at Marcus, "will need to agree. And one strike, you're out. This is your one chance. Make it count." The silence that followed was heavy with possibility. 3 boys, each carrying their own burdens, faced with a choice that could change everything. The easy path beckoned, the familiar rhythm of defiance, punishment, and hardening hearts. But there was something about James Mitchell's offer that spoke to a deeper need, a hunger for change they'd barely acknowledged to themselves. "I'm in," Tyler said quietly, thinking of his mother's tears, of late nights cleaning floors, of dreams deferred by circumstance. "Even if these 2 aren't?" "Same," Devon added, surprising himself. Maybe it was the thought of his father's disappointment, or maybe it was just time for something different. Marcus was last, his guard still up, but wavering. "Not like I've got better options," he muttered. But there was a flicker of hope beneath the cynicism. "When do we start?" Back at Redemption Ranch, James sat in his small office, the security footage playing on his computer screen for the 10th time. Each viewing revealed new details. Marcus's hesitation before the first kick, Devon looking over his shoulder as if seeking approval, Tyler's visible flinch when Thunder whinnied in pain. Sarah stood behind him, taking notes. "4th marker there," James pointed. "See how Marcus pulls back slightly? He's testing boundaries, but there's conflict there. Not a natural aggressor. You're looking for hope even in this?" Sarah asked, though her tone suggested she understood. "Always. Look at their body language. This isn't calculated cruelty. It's impulse, peer pressure, an unprocessed trauma boiling over." The footage continued playing, its harsh reality filling. The small office. Thunder's gentle nature had made him an easy target. He'd approached the boys trustingly, probably expecting the treats visitors sometimes brought. The betrayal of that trust was what hit James hardest. "I've pulled their files," Sarah said, opening 3 thick folders. "Marcus Jenkins has been in the system since age 7. Mother overdosed, father unknown, 8 different placements, 3 this year alone. Documented anger issues, but also high IQ scores and what one counselor called unexpected moments of profound empathy." James nodded, making notes. "And Devon? Classic case of affluenza on the surface, but there's more. Mother left 3 years ago. Father's business success came with a heavy drinking habit. Devon's grades dropped significantly after the divorce. Several citations for reckless behavior, but all settled quietly. Money talks in this town. Tyler? Probably. The most stable home life of the 3, but that's relative. Single mom working multiple jobs, father deported when Tyler was 10. He's been taking care of his younger siblings, keeping house, basically parenting himself, straight A's until last year, then a sharp decline. The security footage reached its end, freezing on a frame of the boys running away, leaving Thunder, trembling in the paddock. James leaned back, rubbing his tired eyes. "Get me Judge Reynolds on the phone," he said finally, and contact Carol at Youth Services. We'll need their support to make this work. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You're really going through with this, taking on 3 troubled teens who just attacked one of our therapy horses. You know what I see in that footage? James gestured to the screen. I see Thunder approaching them without fear. He saw something in those boys that they don't even see in themselves anymore, the possibility of connection, of trust. If a horse that's been through what he has can still offer that chance, who are we to do any less? The phone calls took most of the afternoon. Judge Reynolds was skeptical but intrigued. James's previous successes with troubled youth had earned him some latitude. Carol at Youth Services was more immediately supportive, having seen firsthand the transformative effect of James's programs. Parents are next, James said, reviewing his notes. Devon's father will be the hardest. He's used to buying his way out of problems. Tyler's mother might be too overwhelmed to engage fully. And Marcus, his caseworker called back. Sarah interrupted. His current foster placement is threatening to discharge him over this incident. She's struggling to find alternatives. James was quiet for a moment, then reached for his phone again. Call Lisa at the state licensing office. I'm still certified. As a foster parent, maybe it's time to use that. Sarah's eyes widened. James, you can't take on everything yourself. The ranch, the program, and now fostering. Sometimes the universe puts exactly the right problem in front of you at exactly the right time. He smiled slightly. Besides, you're here. Thunder's here. The whole ranch is set up for exactly this kind of healing. The sun was setting by the time they finished making arrangements. Tomorrow would bring parent meetings, program planning, and the 1,000 details needed to turn this crisis into an opportunity for transformation. But for now, James headed to the barn for evening feeding. Thunder nickered softly as he approached, still trusting despite everything. James measured out grain, added the prescribed medications, and stood watching the horse eat. What do you say, old friend? Ready to help teach another hard lesson about trust and redemption? Thunder lifted his head, grain falling from his lips, and gently bumped James's chest with his nose. Sometimes, James reflected, the hardest hits lead to the most important healings. Tomorrow would test that theory in ways none of them could fully predict. The conference room at Riverside High School had never felt smaller. James sat at one end of the long table, Sarah beside him with documentation spread out before them. On the other side sat the parents, or in Marcus's case, his social worker, along with Principal Roberts and Officer Dan Collins from the County Sheriff's Department. Devon's father, Richard Taylor, dominated the space in his tailored suit, alternating between checking his phone and glaring at his son. "This is ridiculous," he announced. "I'll pay for the horse's medical bills. Let's handle this like reasonable adults." "Money isn't the issue, Mr. Taylor," James replied calmly. "What happened goes deeper than property damage." "Then press charges," Richard snapped. "Let the system handle it. I've already called my lawyer." Tyler's mother, Maria Rodriguez, flinched at the word charges. She'd taken time off from both jobs to be here, her waitress uniform still visible under her worn jacket. "Please," she said softly, her accent thickening with stress. "Tyler is a good boy. He just got lost a little." Marcus slouched in his chair, carefully avoiding eye contact with his social worker, Janet Brooks, who was reviewing his file for the 3rd time. The unspoken reality of his situation hung heavy in the air. Another incident like this would mean juvenile detention, no questions asked. Officer Collins cleared his throat. "The evidence is clear-cut. Security footage shows premeditated animal cruelty. Under normal circumstances, we'd be looking at juvenile charges, mandatory counseling, probably some time in detention. But these aren't normal circumstances," James interjected, leaning forward. "I'm proposing an alternative." He laid out his plan, watching their faces carefully. 6 months of structured program work at Redemption Ranch. daily involvement with horse care, including helping rehabilitate Thunder, counseling sessions, both individual and group, regular progress reports to the court. This isn't the easy way out, Sarah added, addressing the teens directly. You'll work harder than you ever have. Face things you've been avoiding. Learn about consequences by living with them, not just being punished by them. Principal Roberts frowned. And their schoolwork. They're all already struggling academically. The program includes supervised study time, James explained. Plus, working with horses requires mathematics, biology, even physics. They'll learn by doing, not just memorizing. And if they refuse, Richard Taylor demanded, or fail, then we revert to legal charges, Officer Collins stated. This is a one-time opportunity. Mess it up, and the full weight of the law applies. Maria Rodriguez reached for Tyler's hand. You would teach them, help them. We'd work with them, James corrected gently. The horses are excellent teachers on their own. Thunder, especially, has a way of reaching troubled souls. The horse they hurt? Janet Brooks asked skeptically. The horse they'll help heal, James replied. Sometimes the best way to fix what's broken inside us is to help repair what we've damaged outside us. Marcus spoke for the first time, his voice barely audible. Why would you trust us after what we did? The room fell silent, all eyes turning to James. He met Marcus's gaze steadily. Because 17 years ago, I was where you are. Different circumstances, same crossroads. Someone trusted me when I hadn't earned it. That trust saved my life. Sometimes that's all it takes, one person believing change is possible. Devon's facade cracked slightly. Dad, I want to try. Please. Richard Taylor's expression hardened. You want to spend 6 months shoveling horse manure as punishment? As rehabilitation, Sarah corrected. And yes, that's exactly what they need. Structure, responsibility, consequences that build rather than break. Officer Collins nodded slowly. I've seen James's program work before. It's not soft justice. It's actually harder than detention. But the results... I'll do it, Tyler said suddenly, sitting straighter. Mama, I want to make things right. The next few minutes were crucial. Maria Rodriguez signed quickly, tears in her eyes but hope in her smile. Janet Brooks reviewed the documentation carefully before agreeing on Marcus's behalf, though her expression suggested she was expecting failure. Richard Taylor argued, threatened, but finally signed when Devon showed the first real emotion he'd displayed in months, genuine desire for change. As the papers were finalized, James watched the 3 boys. Their postures, their expressions, told different stories. Tyler, nervous but determined. Devon, struggling between ingrained arrogance and desperate need for purpose. Marcus, protective cynicism warring with fragile hope. Tomorrow morning, James announced. 6 a.m. Don't be late. This is your one chance. Make it count. As the room emptied, Sarah gathered the paperwork. You know this could all go horribly wrong. Yes, James agreed, watching the boys leave with their families. Or it could be exactly what everyone in this room needs, especially Thunder. The choice had been made. Tomorrow would begin the real test, not just for 3 troubled teens, but for a wounded horse, a dedicated teacher, and a program built on the belief that trust, once broken, could be rebuilt stronger than before. 5:45 a.m., and frost crystallized on the fence posts of Redemption Ranch. James stood in the barn's entrance, watching the eastern sky lighten. Behind him, Thunder shifted in his stall, his movements still stiff from his injuries. Sarah arrived. First, carrying a box of new work gloves and boots, basic equipment for beginners. Think they'll show? She asked, setting up 3 stations with gear and basic supplies. Tyler will, Devon's 50-50. Marcus. James checked his watch. That depends on whether his new foster placement got him up in time. At 5:55, headlights cut through the dawn. Maria Rodriguez's old Toyota dropped off Tyler, who wore 3 layers against the morning chill. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but he walked straight to the barn, only hesitating slightly at the entrance. "Good morning," James said simply. "Gear's there. Your size is marked." Devon arrived 2 minutes late, driven by his family's housekeeper. His designer sneakers were hilariously inappropriate for farm work, his expression a mix of disdain and uncertainty. But he was here. 6:05. Brought the biggest surprise, Marcus, walking up the long drive alone, breath visible in the cold air. Later they'd learn he'd left his foster home at 4:30, walking 4 miles in the dark to make it on time. "Now that we're all here," James began, but Marcus interrupted. "I had to come. Just needed you to know that." James nodded, understanding the importance of this small declaration of commitment. "First thing you need to know, this isn't punishment. This is rehabilitation, not just for Thunder, but for you. Everything we do here has purpose." He led them to a whiteboard mounted on the barn wall. 3 columns listed daily tasks, safety rules, and program expectations. The boys scanned the lists, eyes widening at the scope of what they'd agreed to. "This is impossible," Devon protested. "All this before school?" "You'll learn time management," Sarah replied. Among other things. Thunder's soft nickering drew their attention. The horse stood at his stall door, watching them. Tyler instinctively stepped back. Marcus's hands clenched into fists, his default response to discomfort. "Today, you just observe," James explained. "Learn safety protocols, basic horse behavior. Watch how we care for Thunder's injuries, the ones you caused." The bluntness made them flinch, but James continued. "Each of you will have specific responsibilities. Tyler, you'll learn feed management and nutrition. Devon, grooming and basic care. Marcus, you're on stall duty and injury treatment. Why those assignments?" Sarah asked later, after the boys had begun their orientation. James watched Marcus carefully measuring medicine under her supervision. "Tyler needs to understand nurturing. He's been focused on survival too long. Devon needs to learn that real care involves getting dirty. And Marcus, he needs to see that healing is possible, even after damage is done." The morning progressed with basic lessons: how to approach a horse, reading ear positions and body language, safety around hooves and teeth. The boys alternated between feigned boredom and intense concentration, their attitudes unable to fully mask their engagement. "Last thing before you head to school," James announced. "You'll each sign this." He unveiled a large document mounted on the wall. At the top, in bold letters, "The agreement." "This isn't just rules," he explained. "It's a contract. With yourselves, with Thunder, with every person and animal on this ranch. You break it, you're out. No appeals." They read in silence. The terms were comprehensive. Daily duties, behavioral expectations, academic requirements, counseling commitments. But there was something else too: opportunities. Riding lessons after trust was established. Training in horse therapy, future job possibilities. "This is more than 6 months," Devon observed, reading the long-term options. "Because healing takes as long as it takes," James replied. 6 months is your mandatory period. After that, well, that depends on you. Marcus studied the signature line. "What if we can't do it? What if we're really just bad?" "There's no such thing as just bad," James said firmly. "There's hurt, lost, angry, scared. But bad, that's a choice. This contract is about making different choices." Sarah handed out pens. Tyler signed first, hand shaking slightly. Devon followed, his usual swagger absent. Marcus stared at the contract longest, before signing with surprising decisiveness. "Welcome to Redemption Ranch," James said. "Tomorrow, the real work begins." The boys left for school, carrying their new work gloves and a weight of responsibility they'd never known before. James watched them go, then turned to Thunder. "Well, old friend," he murmured, "ready to help teach your hardest lesson yet?" The horse's gentle whicker seemed almost like a yes. Dawn painted the sky in shades of pink and gold as three exhausted boys trudged up the gravel drive of Redemption Ranch. Day one of real work was about to begin, and none of them were ready for what awaited. Those designer jeans won't survive. The morning, Sarah commented quietly to James as they watched Devon arrive in what appeared to be brand new expensive ranch wear. That's part of the lesson, James replied. Some things you can't buy your way through. Marcus arrived next, shoulders hunched against the morning chill, wearing the same hoodie as yesterday. Tyler came last, his mother's car barely disappearing. Around the bend before James called them together. Yesterday was orientation, James announced. Today you learn what work really means. Everything you do here has purpose. Every task affects the horse's well-being. Slack off and they suffer. Understood? 3 mumbled responses. Can't hear you. Yes, sir, they managed with varying degrees of sincerity. Marcus, stalls need mucking. Tyler, feed needs mixing according to that chart. Devon, grooming station needs setting up. You have 30 minutes, go. They stood frozen. That means now. The chaos that followed would have been comical if it weren't so serious. Marcus stared at the wheelbarrow and pitchfork like they were alien artifacts. Devon couldn't figure out how to unlock the grooming kit. Tyler mixed feed with the precision of someone disarming a bomb, triple-checking every measurement. Help. Them, Sarah asked, watching Marcus struggle with his first stall. Not yet. Let them figure out what they don't know. Sometimes you have to face your own incompetence before you can learn. 20 minutes in, Marcus threw down his pitchfork. This is impossible. There's too much. Everything. Figured out you. Don't know what you're doing, James asked calmly. Marcus deflated slightly. Yeah. Good. That's your first real lesson. Now you're ready to learn. Sarah stepped forward, demonstrating proper technique. You're fighting against yourself. Let the tool do the work. Like this. Meanwhile, Devon had managed to tangle himself in curry combs and brushes. His expensive jeans were already stained with dust and leather oil. These supplies are defective, he complained. No, James corrected. You just never learned the right way to use them. Wanting to do something isn't the same as knowing how. Watch. Tyler was having his own crisis at the feed station. What if I get it wrong? What if they get sick because I messed up? That fear, James said, checking his measurements. Hold on to it. Not enough to paralyze you, but enough to keep you careful. Lives depend on doing things right here. By mid-morning, all 3 boys were sweating, dirty, and facing truths about themselves they'd never confronted before. Devon's money couldn't help him master basic skills. Marcus's anger couldn't make him instantly competent. Tyler's caution had to be balanced with confidence. Then came time to face Thunder. The horse watched from his stall as they gathered around James. The boys unconsciously shifted, guilt and fear warring on their faces. He remembers us, Devon said quietly. Yes, James confirmed. Horses don't forget, but they do forgive if you earn it. Marcus, get the medicine kit. It's time to treat the injuries you caused. Marcus froze. I can't. You can. And you will. Every day you'll face what your actions did. Every day you'll help him heal. With trembling hands, Marcus prepared the treatment Sarah had taught him. Thunder's flesh was still tender, bruises visible beneath his coat. Each flinch from the horse made Marcus pale slightly. I did this, he whispered. We did this. Yes, James said. Now you help fix it. Devon and Tyler watched, their own tasks momentarily forgotten. This wasn't the easy community service they'd expected. This was intimate, personal confrontation with their actions. Why isn't he attacking us? Tyler asked suddenly. After what we did. Because horses live in the present, Sarah explained. They respond to who you are now, not who you were yesterday. But, she added as Tyler relaxed slightly, they never forget. Trust, once broken, has to be re-earned every day. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of tasks, corrections, and small victories. By the time they needed to leave for school, all three boys were physically exhausted, but somehow different. Something had shifted. "Your clothes," James said. To Devon, who was examining his ruined jeans. "Yeah? Tomorrow, wear something you can work in. This isn't about looking the part, it's about doing the work." Devon nodded, surprising everyone with his lack of complaint. "Marcus," James continued, "there's a spare coat in the tack room. It gets cold here in the mornings. It's yours if you want it." Marcus's throat worked for a moment before he managed a quiet, "Thanks." "Tyler, those feed measurements? Perfect. Fear of failing kept you careful, but tomorrow trust yourself a little more. You have good instincts." As they gathered their things to leave, Thunder nickered softly. All three boys turned, something like hope mixing with their guilt. "He's saying goodbye," Sarah explained. "Even after everything, he's willing to give you another chance. Question is, what will you do with it?" They left in silence, each lost in thought. James watched them go, then turned to Sarah. "Day 1. Think they'll be back tomorrow?" "Look at their faces," James replied. "They've just discovered something. Most troubled kids never learn the difference between punishment and purpose. They'll be back." Thunder's soft wicker seemed to agree. A week into the program, the morning routine had settled into something resembling order. Marcus arrived first now, wearing the ranch coat James had given him, starting his tasks without being told. Devon had swapped designer labels for durable work clothes, his complaints about dirt replaced by quiet determination. Tyler's anxious double-checking had evolved into confident efficiency, but this morning was different. James waited in the barn office, reviewing 3 sets of school reports that had just arrived. The results weren't surprising, but they added another layer to their challenges. All 3 failing at least 2 subjects, Sarah noted, reading over his shoulder. Devon's skipping classes, Marcus is sleeping through them, and Tyler's missing. "Assignments. Can't heal one part while ignoring the others," James replied, standing as the boys arrived. "Time to add another dimension to their rehabilitation." The morning meeting started as usual, but the school report sitting on James's desk drew anxious glances. "Before you start your regular tasks," James announced, "let's talk about something. This program isn't just about physical work. It's about complete rehabilitation." Devon's face darkened. "Our teachers told you stuff." "They did, and now we deal with it. Starting today, you'll have study sessions in the tack room between chores. Sarah's setting up a workspace. Missing assignments will be completed. Tests will be prepared for." "We don't have time," Tyler protested. "The morning chores, then school, then afternoon chores." "Exactly," James cut in. "Welcome to responsibility. Managing time, meeting obligations, handling multiple demands. This isn't punishment, it's preparation for life." Marcus hadn't spoken, his expression unreadable. James turned to him. "Something to say?" "What's the point?" Marcus's voice was tight. "School, this place, nothing sticks, nothing lasts." "Because you've never stayed in one place long enough?" James asked quietly. "That's changing. You're here now. Make it count." The morning unfolded with new tensions. Devon struggled with a particularly stubborn horse during grooming, his frustration building until he threw the brush down. "I can't do everything," he shouted. "School, this place, my dad's expectations." James picked up the brush, handed it back. "No one said it would be easy, but every time you want to quit, look at Thunder. Those wounds you caused, they're healing because of consistent daily care. Your life can heal the same way." Tyler's usual precision faltered as he worried about missed homework, leading to a spilled feed bin. He nearly cried with frustration until Sarah showed him how to clean up efficiently. "Write it down," she suggested. "What went wrong, how you fixed it. That's science class right there. Practical problem solving." But it was Marcus who faced the hardest challenge. During injury treatment, Thunder spooked at a sudden noise, knocking Marcus down. The old Marcus would have exploded in anger. Instead, he stayed on the ground for a moment, breathing hard. "You okay?" James asked, helping. Him up, he didn't mean it, Marcus said, surprising everyone. He was scared, like me sometimes. James nodded. Understanding that is worth more than any grade. But let's work on your biology homework anyway. Anatomy and behavior are part of horse care. The morning study session revealed more than academic struggles. Devon, for all his bravado, had undiagnosed reading difficulties. Tyler's missing assignments stemmed from choosing work over homework to help his family. Marcus showed flashes of brilliant comprehension between gaps of missed education. This is what I meant about complete rehabilitation, James explained as they worked. Everything connects. Understanding horse anatomy helps you treat injuries. Better, math skills improve feed measurements. Writing helps you document progress. But it's so much, Tyler said, overwhelmed. Life is much, Sarah replied, but you don't handle it all at once. You prioritize, organize, adapt. By the time they needed to leave for school, something had shifted. Devon had discovered he could understand concepts better when they were connected to practical tasks. Tyler had found a way to document his ranch work for extra credit in science. Marcus had completed his first homework assignment in weeks. Tomorrow, James called as they left, bring your school books. Every morning we'll find ways to connect what you learn here with what you need to learn there. After they'd gone, Sarah reviewed their progress notes. They're changing. Slowly, but it's happening. The real test is coming, James replied, watching Thunder in his paddock. When the physical work becomes routine, when the novelty wears off, that's when we'll see if these changes stick. You think they will? James smiled slightly. Did you see Marcus with Thunder after the spook? He didn't blame the horse, didn't lash out. He understood. That's not just change. That's growth. The afternoon sun cast long shadows in the barn as they prepared for the boys' return after school. 3 sets of school books waited in the tack room, alongside guides on horse care and behavior. The rehabilitation was expanding, becoming more complex, but so were the opportunities for real transformation. One day at a time, James murmured to Thunder, who was finally moving more freely, his own healing progressing. That's all anyone can ask. 2 weeks into the program, James arrived at the barn to find Marcus already there, standing quietly at Thunder's stall. The boy didn't move as James approached, his eyes fixed on the horse's healing flanks. The bruises are fading, Marcus said softly, but I can still see where each kick landed. Physical wounds heal faster than emotional ones, James replied, for horses and humans both. Today marked a milestone in Thunder's recovery, his first day back in the training ring. The boys arrived to find James and Sarah setting up a series of gentle exercises designed to rebuild the horse's confidence. I don't get it, Devon said, watching the preparations. He's physically better. Why all this extra stuff? Because healing isn't just physical, Sarah explained. Thunder needs to trust again, to feel safe in spaces where he was hurt, not unlike some people I know. The implied parallel wasn't lost on any of them. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Marcus studied the ground, and Devon's usual mask of indifference cracked slightly. Each of you will participate in Thunder's rehabilitation today, James announced. Different roles, same goal, helping him recover his confidence. He assigned their tasks. Tyler would lead Thunder through basic movements, his gentle nature, perfect for rebuilding trust. Devon, with his newfound patience in grooming, would handle ground exercises. Marcus, who'd been treating the injuries daily, would monitor Thunder's responses for any signs of distress. Why Marcus for monitoring? Sarah asked quietly as they watched the boys prepare. He's usually the most hands-on. Because he needs to learn to read pain in others, James replied. He spent too long ignoring his own. The session began tentatively. Thunder moved cautiously, clearly remembering his last experience in the ring. Tyler's hands trembled slightly on the lead rope. He knows it was us, Tyler whispered. He remembers what we did here. Yes, James confirmed. but he's giving you a chance to prove you've changed. That's more than most humans would do. Devon's turn brought a breakthrough. As he guided Thunder through simple turns and stops, the horse gradually relaxed. Devon's own tension melted as he focused entirely on the animal's needs rather than his own discomfort. "Good," Sarah encouraged. "See how he responds when you're fully present? When you're thinking about his well-being instead of yourself." Marcus's role proved the most challenging. Every flinch from Thunder, every hesitation felt like a personal accusation. Halfway through, he stepped back, overwhelmed. I keep seeing it. What I did. James moved closer. "That's exactly why you need to stay. Face it, learn from it, help make it right." "How?" Marcus's voice cracked. "How do you fix something like that?" "One day at a time. One small act of kindness after another, until the good memories outnumber the bad." As the session progressed, something remarkable happened. Thunder began moving more freely, his ears forward, showing interest rather than just compliance. The boys, sensing the change, grew more confident in their roles. "Watch his body language," Sarah instructed. "See how he's choosing to move closer. That's trust beginning to rebuild." Tyler noticed first. "He's not just tolerating us anymore. He's participating, because you're not just going through motions either," James pointed out. "You're fully engaged, thinking about his needs, working together." Devon, usually quick with a comment, worked in focused silence. His movements were precise, considerate, nothing like the careless boy who'd participated in the attack. Finally, he spoke. "We didn't just hurt his body, did we? We hurt who he is, his trust." "Yes," James said simply. "Just like people, horses carry emotional scars. But also like people, they have an amazing capacity to heal, if given the chance." Marcus, still monitoring, noticed something subtle. His breathing's changed. It's deeper, calmer, like he feels safe. "That's right," Sarah confirmed. "You're learning to read him, to understand without words. That's empathy, feeling what another being feels." The session ended with an unexpected moment. Thunder, of his own accord, approached each boy in turn, gently nickering. There were tears in Tyler's eyes, though he tried to hide them. Devon stood perfectly still, accepting the moment with unusual humility. Marcus reached out slowly, letting Thunder choose whether to accept his touch. "He's giving us another chance," Marcus said wonderingly. "Everyone deserves that chance," James replied. "The question is, what will you do with it?" As they cleaned up the ring, Sarah noticed a change in their dynamics. They worked together naturally now, anticipating each other's needs, communicating without words, just like they'd done with Thunder. "They're healing too," she observed to James. "Maybe without even realizing it." "That's often how real change happens," he replied. "Not through dramatic moments, but through small, daily choices to be better than you were yesterday." Thunder watched from his stall as the boys prepared to leave for school, his gentle presence, a reminder of both their past actions and their potential for change. The bruises were fading, but the lessons about trust, healing, and second chances were only beginning to take root. 1 month into the program, the facade began to crack. It started with Devon missing a morning session, his first absence since they'd begun. When he arrived the next day, his knuckles were bruised and his eyes held a familiar anger. "Fight with my old man," he muttered when James asked. "He's drinking again. Says this whole ranch thing is a waste of time." James watched Devon attack his grooming duties with barely controlled fury. The careful, patient movements he'd developed were gone, replaced by harsh, jerky motions that made the horses nervous. "Easy," James said quietly. "They can feel your anger." "Good." Devon snapped, then immediately deflated as the horse shied away. I'm sorry, it's just..." Everything was getting better. I was getting better. Then he... reminded you that not everything changes at once. James finished. That some battles take longer to win. Meanwhile, Tyler's exhaustion was becoming dangerous. He'd taken on extra night shifts at his mother's cleaning job, trying to help with bills. His precise feed measurements were slipping, his focus wavering. "I can handle it," he insisted when Sarah confronted him about a near accident with a medicine dose. "I have to handle it." "No," Sarah corrected firmly. "You have to let others help before you hurt yourself or the horses." But it was Marcus who faced the deepest crisis. His foster placement was threatening to end, citing his long hours at the ranch as antisocial behavior. The prospect of another move, another disruption, brought back all his old defenses. "What's the point?" he exploded during a particularly difficult therapy session. "I finally find something that matters, something I'm good at, and they want to take it away. Just like everything else." James found him later in Thunder's stall, sitting in the corner, the horse standing guard over him like a sentinel. They had developed a special bond, two wounded souls helping each other heal. "I talked to your social worker," James said, settling down beside Marcus, "and I've made a decision. If you want, there's a place for you here, permanently." Marcus looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "I mean I've been approved as a foster placement. This could be your home, not just your program, your choice." The silence that followed was heavy with possibility and fear. "What if I mess up?" Marcus finally whispered. "What if I'm not worth it?" "That's not how worth works," James replied. "It's not something you earn. It's something you already have." Thunder chose that moment to nuzzle Marcus's hair, drawing a shaky laugh from the boy. "Even after what I did to him, especially after, he sees who you're becoming, not who you were." The day brought more challenges. Devon's father showed up at the ranch, drunk and angry, demanding to withdraw his son from the program. The confrontation could have destroyed weeks of progress. Instead, Devon surprised everyone. "No," he said firmly, standing between his father and the nervous horses. "This is mine. This is something good I'm doing. You can't take it away." Tyler's mother arrived next, concerned about his exhaustion. Sarah sat with them, helping work out a schedule that would let him contribute while still taking care of himself. "Sometimes, strength is knowing when to ask for help," Sarah explained, "not just giving it." By evening, all three boys had faced critical moments in their journey. They gathered in the tack room for their usual study session, but James could see they needed something more. "Come with me," he said, leading them to the training ring where Thunder waited. "Today, you each faced parts of yourselves you've been avoiding. Now we're going to try something new." He handed each boy a brush. "Grooming isn't just about cleaning the horse, it's about connection. While you work, I want you to talk, really talk, about what scares you, what makes you angry, what you hope for." "Why?" Devon asked, though he was already moving to Thunder's side. "Because healing happens in layers. You've handled the surface stuff, the daily work, the routine. Now it's time to go deeper." As they worked, the stories began to flow. Devon's fear that he'd become his father, Tyler's guilt about not being able to fix everything for his family, Marcus's terror of hoping for permanence. Thunder stood quietly, accepting their touch, their tears, their truths. James and Sarah watched as something profound happened. Three broken boys finding strength in vulnerability, unity in shared pain. "This is the real test," Sarah murmured to James. "Not just changing their actions, but healing their hearts." "They're ready for it," James replied, watching Marcus lean into Thunder's solid presence, Devon's hands gentling with each stroke, Tyler's shoulders finally relaxing. "Sometimes you have to break all the way down before you can rebuild stronger." The morning sun caught the mist rising from the paddocks as James watched Thunder and Marcus in the training ring. The horse moved freely now, his injuries healed, while Marcus guided him through gentle exercises. There was a quiet confidence in the boys' movements that hadn't existed before. "Ready to try something new?" James called, entering the ring. Marcus tensed slightly. "What kind of new?" Thunder's physically healed. Time to start his advanced training again, and I think you're ready to be part of it. Sarah arrived with Devon and Tyler, carrying training equipment. The boys had been at the ranch for 6 weeks now, and their transformation was becoming visible. Devon's designer clothes had been permanently replaced by well-worn work gear. Tyler's constant anxiety had mellowed into focused attention. And Marcus moved like he belonged. "Today," James announced, "you'll each learn how Thunder helps other troubled kids, because eventually that's going to be part of your role here." The boys exchanged surprised looks. "Us?" Tyler asked. "Help other kids?" "Who better?" Sarah replied. "You understand both sides now. The anger that leads to bad choices, and the work it takes to make things right." They started with basic therapy exercises. James demonstrated how Thunder responded to emotions, how his reactions could help identify what kids were really feeling beneath their words. "Watch his ears," James instructed as Devon approached, trying to hide his nervousness. "See how they track tension? He's like a mirror, reflecting what we try to hide." Devon's hand trembled slightly as he touched Thunder's neck. "He knows. Even when I try to act tough, he knows. That's his gift," Sarah explained, "and why what you did to him was so devastating. He trusts completely, making betrayal that much worse." The words hit hard, but differently than before. Now they understood the real weight of their actions, and more importantly, the responsibility of making amends. Tyler's turn revealed unexpected talent. His gentle nature and attention to detail made him particularly good at reading horse behavior. He noticed subtle signs the others missed. "His left hind hoof," Tyler pointed out. "He shifts it slightly when someone's really upset, like he's getting ready to move if needed." "Excellent observation," James praised. "That's exactly the kind of detail that helps us help others." But it was Marcus who showed the most profound connection. Working with Thunder, he demonstrated an almost intuitive understanding of the horse's responses. "It's like," he struggled to explain, "I can feel what he's feeling, because I've been there, scared to trust, but wanting to so badly. It hurts." James nodded. "That's empathy, not just understanding, but truly feeling with another being. It's what makes healing possible, for them and for us." The morning progressed into more advanced work. They learned how Thunder helped angry kids find calm, how his presence could quiet even the most troubled minds. Each boy took turns playing different roles: troubled youth, helper, observer. "Remember how you felt that first day?" Sarah guided them. "The anger, the fear, the defiance. Now look at where you are. That's the hope you'll offer others." Devon struggled with a particular exercise, his frustration building, but instead of lashing out as he once would have, he stepped back, took a deep breath, and tried again. "Good choice," James commented. "Learned it from him," Devon replied, nodding toward Thunder. "He always gives you another chance if you calm down and try again." Tyler discovered he had a talent for working with younger kids who visited the ranch. His natural patience and understanding made him especially good with the most frightened ones. "You've got a gift," Sarah told him. "You know what it's like to carry too much weight. That helps you see it in others." Near the end of the session, James gathered them for a special announcement. "The local youth center wants to start sending kids here twice a week. They've heard about Thunder's work with troubled youth. I'm telling you this because you'll be..." "Part of it, us?" Marcus asked. "Really, really, you've earned it. More importantly, you understand the journey these kids need to take. You've walked it yourselves." The responsibility of this new role settled on them differently than past obligations. This wasn't a burden, but an opportunity, a chance to turn their worst mistake into something meaningful. "What if we mess up?" Tyler worried. "What if we can't Help them? You will mess up, James said frankly. Everyone does. The question is whether you'll learn from it and try again, just like you've been doing here. Thunder moved among them, touching each boy in turn with his soft muzzle. The gesture held meaning now that it hadn't before: acceptance, trust, belief in their potential. Before you leave today, Sarah said, I want you to remember something. 2 months ago, you thought you were coming here to be punished. Instead, you've found your purpose. That's what you'll offer others, not judgment, but understanding. Not punishment, but purpose. As they prepared to leave for school, each boy spent a moment with Thunder, their interactions now natural and confident. The horse that had once been their victim had become their teacher, their healer, and now their partner in helping others. Think they're ready? Sarah asked James as they watched the boys leave. Look at them with Thunder now, compared to that first day. They're not just ready. They're exactly what some of these troubled kids need. Living proof that change is possible. The counseling room at Redemption Ranch wasn't really a room at all, but a quiet corner of the barn loft, furnished with comfortable chairs and warmed by morning sunlight. Here, every Wednesday, the boys met with Sarah for group therapy. Today's session would prove more challenging than most. We need to talk about triggers, Sarah began, noting how each boy tensed at the word. The things that push you toward destructive behavior. Understanding them is part of preventing future incidents. Marcus slouched deeper in his chair. Devon studied his hands. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Let's start with that day, Sarah continued gently. The day with Thunder. What was really going on? Silence stretched until Devon surprisingly spoke first. Dad had been drinking again. Big scene at breakfast. Called me worthless, like always. I just needed to feel powerful for once. By hurting something gentle, Sarah observed. Something that couldn't hurt you back. Devon's eyes filled unexpectedly. Like Mom did when she left. Just walked away because he broke her, and now I'm turning into him. No, Marcus cut in with surprising force. You're not. I've seen your dad, remember? You're nothing like him. When you mess up, you try to fix it. He just breaks more stuff. The insight startled everyone, including Marcus. Sarah nodded encouragingly. That's important, Marcus. You're learning to see patterns, understand behavior. What patterns do you see in yourself? Marcus stared at the floor. Foster homes, 7 of them. Each time they promise it's permanent. Each time they give up. Easier to push people away first. Easier to be the bad kid they expect, but not here. Tyler added quietly, you're different here. Because, Marcus struggled with the words, because James didn't expect anything. Just showed me what I could be if I wanted to. No pressure, no promises, just possibility. Sarah turned to Tyler. And you, what drives your choices? Fear, Tyler whispered. All the time. Fear of not being enough, not helping enough at home. Mom works so hard and I just keep letting her down. That day, I went along because I was afraid of standing alone. Again. The morning sun climbed higher, dust motes dancing in the beams as each boy faced their demons aloud for the first time. My dad, Devon continued unprompted, he buys stuff instead of showing up. Expensive clothes, new phone, whatever. But Thunder doesn't care about that stuff. Just cares if you're really there, really trying. The last foster home, Marcus added, they had all these rules, but no one actually cared if I followed them or not. Here, the rules matter because they protect something important. Someone important. Tyler nodded. Mom always said actions speak louder than words, but I never really got it until now. Until Thunder showed us how much actions can hurt or heal. Sarah let the revelation settle before speaking. Understanding why we do things is crucial, but it's what we do with that understanding that matters. How do you handle those triggers now? I go to the barn, Devon said. When Dad's been drinking, when I feel that rage building, I go groom the horses. Can't be angry around them. They need calm. I focus on what I can control, Tyler offered. Can't fix everything at home, but I can do this right. Do something good here. Marcus was quiet longest. I think about Thunder, he finally said. How he gave us another chance. Makes me want to be worthy of that. The sound of hooves on gravel drew their attention. Through the loft window, they could see James working with Thunder in the ring. The horse moved with restored confidence. His trust rebuilt through patient dedication. Last question, Sarah said. What would you tell your past selves if you could go back to that day? That hurting others doesn't make you stronger, Devon replied immediately. It just proves how weak you really are. That being afraid isn't an excuse, Tyler added. You have to stand for something, even if you stand alone. Marcus watched Thunder for a long moment. That some mistakes can be fixed, he said finally. If you're brave enough to try, really try. As they descended the loft stairs for their morning duties, each boy carried something new. Not the weight of past actions, but the understanding of them. Knowledge that could light the way forward. James met them at the bottom, noting their serious expressions. Good session? Hard, Marcus answered honestly. But good hard, like mucking stalls. The comparison drew surprised laughs, breaking the heavy mood. They moved to their tasks with renewed purpose, understanding now that every action, every choice, was a step either toward or away from who they wanted to become. Thunder watched from his stall, his gentle eyes following their movements. He'd become more than just a therapy horse for troubled kids. He was a mirror, reflecting back their potential for both harm and healing, challenging them to choose. Wisely, they're getting it, Sarah told James later, really getting it. They are, James agreed. Now comes the hard part, living what they've learned even when it's tested, because it will be tested. He didn't know how prophetic those words would prove to be. The call came at midnight. James fumbled for his phone, instantly alert when he saw it was Marcus's social worker. He's gone, Janet said without preamble. Packed a bag and disappeared. Left a note saying he's sorry. James was already pulling. On Boots. What triggered it? No, court date got moved up. His mother's seeking visitation rights. She's been clean for 6 months, wants to reconnect. The news hit like a physical blow. Marcus's mother, whose overdose had put him in the system, 8 years ago had made similar attempts before, always ending in disappointment. Dawn found the ranch in chaos. Devon and Tyler arrived to find police cars in the drive, and Thunder agitated in his stall, sensing the tension. The horse hadn't been properly cared for overnight, his first missed treatment since the program began. Marcus wouldn't just leave. Devon insisted, his own family issues making him particularly sensitive to the situation. Not without telling us, not without saying goodbye to Thunder. Tyler, already moving to handle the morning feed, paused. His extra coat's still here, the one James gave him. Sarah coordinated with local authorities, while James made calls to Marcus's known hangouts. But both boys noticed their mentors kept checking the ranch's perimeter, as if expecting something. By afternoon, with no sign of Marcus, the mood had darkened. Devon's grooming became aggressive, his old anger resurfacing. Tyler made 3 mistakes in feed measurements, his anxiety overwhelming his usual precision. He promised, Devon finally exploded, throwing a brush across the tack room. He promised he wasn't like the others who just leave. Devon, James said quietly, what's this really about? Everyone leaves. My mom, Marcus, everyone who says they'll stay. Tyler stepped between Devon and the scattered grooming tools. We don't know the whole story. Marcus always had a reason for things, even bad choices. But the day's real crisis came during Thunder's evening check. The horse, missing Marcus's familiar care, refused his medications. More concerning, he showed signs of depression, not eating, standing listlessly in his stall. Animals know, Sarah explained to the boys. They feel the absence of people they trust. Marcus wasn't just helping Thunder heal, they were healing each other. The police called with a possible sighting near the bus station, but it led nowhere. As night fell, James made a decision. You two head home, but first, help me set up the barn. They watched, confused, as James prepared a sleeping bag in the hayloft, stocked a cooler with sandwiches and water, and turned on the small space heater they used on cold mornings. He'll come back, James said simply, when he's ready, and someone needs to be here when he does. Devon stared at the preparations, understanding dawning. You're not giving up on him? Never. That's the difference between us and the others. In his life, we stay. Tyler helped organize the medical supplies Marcus usually managed. Should we stay too? No, but be ready. When he comes back, he'll need his friends, his real friends. As the boys left, Sarah approached James. You seem awfully sure he's coming back. Marcus didn't leave because he wanted to run. James replied, checking Thunder one last time. He left because he's scared of hoping, scared of believing his mother, scared of being hurt again. But there's one thing stronger than that fear. Thunder, Sarah realized. He won't abandon him, not like he was abandoned. He just needs time to remember that. The night stretched long. James dozed in the hayloft, waking at every sound. Thunder remained restless, his occasional nickering echoing through the barn. Around 3 a.m., soft footsteps on gravel. James stayed perfectly still as the barn door creaked open. Moonlight silhouetted a familiar figure, backpack still on his shoulder. Marcus moved directly to Thunder's stall, where the horse greeted him with a gentle nicker. I'm sorry, Marcus whispered, his voice thick. I got scared. But I couldn't do to you what she did to me. He knew you'd come back, James said quietly, making Marcus jump. We both did. Marcus's shoulders slumped. I left, just like everyone else. No, James descended the loft ladder. Everyone else stays gone. You came back, that's the difference. She wants to see me, Marcus's voice cracked. Says she's better now, but what if she's not? What if she leaves again? James approached slowly. Then you'll handle it. Not alone, not anymore. But first, I think someone needs his medicine and a proper night check. Marcus moved automatically to the medical kit, his hands finding the familiar routine. As he worked, his breathing steadied, his movements became sure again. This, at least, he knew how to do. This, he could control. Your bed's still made upstairs, James said when Marcus finished, unless you'd rather go back to the foster home. Marcus looked at Thunder, at the barn that had become more home than any foster placement, at the man who had stayed awake waiting for him. Can I stay? Always, James replied. That's what family means, real family. Morning arrived, with a tension no one quite knew how to handle. Devon and Tyler found Marcus in Thunder's stall, completing the morning routine as if he'd never left. But the shadows under his eyes and the careful way everyone moved around him and told a different story. Group session, now. Sarah's voice broke the awkward silence. All of you. In the loft, morning light streamed through dust motes as they settled into their usual spots. But today felt different. Today, the pretenses would fall. I found this, Sarah said quietly, placing a crumpled letter on the floor between them. In Marcus's backpack when he returned. Marcus stiffened. That's private. It's from your mother, Sarah continued gently. Written 6 years ago, before her last disappearance. You've been carrying it all this time. Devon and Tyler watched their friend curl in on himself, recognizing the signs of a breaking point they'd all faced themselves. She promised. Marcus's voice was barely audible. Every time she promised, just one more chance, baby. Mama's doing better now. Then I'd come home from school and find her passed out, or gone, or... He stopped, hands clenching. And now, she wants another chance, Sarah prompted. I can't. Marcus looked up, raw pain in his eyes. I can't do it again. Can't watch her destroy herself. Can't be the kid who wasn't enough reason for her to stay clean. That's not, Devon started. But Tyler cut him off. Let him talk, he needs this. The dam broke. Years of carefully contained pain poured out as Marcus told them everything. The endless cycle of hope and disappointment. The nights spent taking care of his mother when she was high. The promises made and broken. The final overdose that put him in foster care. You know what's worse? Marcus's voice had grown hoarse. Every time she comes back, every time she says she's better, part of me still wants to believe her. How stupid is that? It's not stupid, Devon said suddenly. It's like me with my dad. Every time he's sober, every time he acts like the father I remember from before, I want to believe it'll last, even knowing better. Tyler nodded. Like me thinking if I just work hard enough, take care of enough things, my family won't struggle anymore. We all have those hopes we can't quite kill. But here's the difference, Sarah interjected. Now you have something you didn't have before. You have each other. You have us. You have Thunder. Thunder, Marcus repeated softly. I almost left him, like she left me. But you came back, James said from the doorway where he'd been listening. That's what matters. You felt the pull to run, but you chose to return. That's not weakness, Marcus. That's incredible strength. Devon moved closer to his friend. Remember what you told me about my dad? How I'm different because I try to fix things? Same goes for you. You're not your mum. You came back. The court. Date's next week, Marcus said. They want me to see her. Then we'll all go, Tyler declared. If you want us to. Marcus looked surprised. You'd do that? Of course, idiota. Devon punched his shoulder lightly. We're in this together now. All of us screwed up kids trying to do better. And Thunder needs you, Tyler added. You're the only one who does his medicine right. I still measure 3 times and Devon's hands are too rough. A ghost of a smile crossed Marcus's face. He does prefer my touch. Because you understand him, James said. You both know what it's like to be hurt by someone who should have protected you, and you both know the courage it takes to trust again. Sarah gathered the letter from the floor. You don't have to decide about your mother right now. But whatever you choose, you're not alone anymore. They spent the rest of the morning in Thunder's stall, the horse seeming to understand the need for closeness. Marcus talked more about his mother, about his fears, about the constant battle between hope and self-protection. Devon shared stories about his father's drinking, the good days that made the bad ones harder to handle. Tyler spoke about the weight of responsibility, the fear of never being enough, and through it all, Thunder stood steady, his solid presence a reminder that some bonds, once forged through pain and healing, become unbreakable. You know what's weird? Marcus said finally. I've spent so long being afraid of people leaving, I almost missed seeing the ones who stayed. James smiled. Sometimes the family you find is stronger than the family you're born to. Not because they have to stay, but because they choose to. As morning turned to afternoon, something had shifted. The truth hadn't just emerged, it had transformed. What started as one boy's crisis had become a moment of deeper bonding for all of them. So, Devon asked, as they finally returned to their duties, You're staying? Marcus looked around, at the barn that had become home, at the friends who had become family, at the horse who had helped him heal. Yeah, he said. I'm staying. 2 days after Marcus's return, James gathered the boys for an unexpected announcement. The morning sun had barely cleared the horizon, but there was an energy in the air that felt different from their usual routine. The state's largest youth rehabilitation conference is coming up, James began, watching their reactions carefully. They've asked Redemption Ranch to demonstrate our program. Specifically, they want to see how troubled teens can be transformed through work with horses. The boys exchanged nervous glances. Devon spoke first. "You mean show people what we do here?" "More than that," Sarah added. "Show them who you've become. There will be judges, social workers, program directors, people who make decisions. About kids like you every day." Marcus, still raw from his recent crisis, shifted uncomfortably. "When?" "2 weeks," James replied. "Just enough time to prepare something special. Thunder will be the star, of course, but you three will demonstrate how working with him changed you." Tyler's anxiety surfaced immediately. "In front of people? Like a lot of people?" 300. "Delegates," Sarah confirmed, "plus local media." The panic was instant and visible. Devon started pacing, Tyler's hands trembled, and Marcus looked ready to bolt again. But then something remarkable happened. "Hey," Marcus said to Tyler, recognizing his friend's rising anxiety. "Remember what you taught me about Thunder's breathing, how focusing on keeping him calm keeps you calm?" Tyler nodded, automatically matching his breathing to the steady rhythm they'd learned. "And you," Devon added, surprising everyone with his insight. "You came back because this matters, because we matter. Maybe that's what we need to show them." James watched proudly as they steadied each other. These weren't the same boys who'd kicked a horse for fun months ago. These were young men learning to turn their pain into strength, their challenges into wisdom. The preparation was intense. Beyond their regular duties, they now had to perfect a demonstration routine. Each boy would show different aspects of Thunder's rehabilitation process. Tyler, with his gentle precision, would demonstrate the daily care routines, the foundation of trust building. Devon would show the grooming and handling techniques that had taught him patience and control. Marcus would present the medical care that had helped both him and Thunder heal. But the pressure took its toll. During one practice session, Devon's old anger flared when he couldn't get a sequence right. "This is stupid," he snapped, throwing down the lead rope. "We're going to look like idiots." "No," James corrected calmly. "You're going to look like what you are. Survivors who chose to change, but first, you need to remember how far you've come." He led them to the office, pulling out the security footage from that first day. None of them had watched it since the incident. "Look," he instructed. "Really look." The footage was harder to watch than they expected. They saw themselves, angry, lost boys, acting out of pain and ignorance. But now they could see something else too. "Thunder," Tyler whispered. "Even then, even after he still tried to trust us." "That's what we show them," Sarah said. "Not just the change in you, but the power of trust freely given. Of second chances earned through hard work." The practice sessions took on new meaning. They weren't just learning routines, they were preparing to tell their story. Each movement with Thunder became a testament to transformation. Marcus worked through his own continuing struggles by focusing on the demonstration's medical component. His pending reunion with his mother still loomed, but now he had purpose, showing others that healing was possible. "What if we fail?" Tyler asked one evening as they reviewed the program. "What if we mess up and make the ranch look bad?" "Then we'll have shown something equally important," James replied. "That recovery isn't about perfection, it's about getting back up when you fall." Devon, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. "My dad's coming, called this morning, said he's been sober 3 weeks, wants to see what I've been doing here." The others absorbed this news, understanding its weight. Another, "A test within the test." "Good," Marcus said firmly. "Let him see, let them all see." As the conference date approached, the ranch hummed with activity, but beneath the preparations ran a deeper current. The sense that these boys were preparing for more than just a demonstration. They were preparing to stand before the world and declare their own worth. Thunder, now fully recovered, seemed to understand the importance of what was coming. His cooperation during practice was absolute, his connection with each boy growing stronger daily. "Remember," James told them at the end of another long practice, "you're not just showing them what you learned about horses. You're showing them what you learned about yourselves." The boys nodded, their determination visible in every line of their bodies. They had 2 weeks to perfect their presentation, 2 weeks to prove that trust, once broken, could be rebuilt stronger than before. Sarah watched them head home, then turned to James. "They're ready for this, aren't they?" "More than ready," he replied. "They're finally ready to see themselves the way Thunder sees them, not for who they were, but for who they've become." Conference day dawned clear and cold. Marcus arrived at the ranch before sunrise, unable to sleep. He found James already in Thunder's stall, meticulously grooming the horse who had changed everything. "He knows today's important," James said quietly. "Horses always know." One by one, the others arrived. Devon's hands shook as he changed into the new ranch where his father had bought him. Not designer clothes this time, but proper work gear. Tyler kept checking and rechecking their equipment, his usual precision heightened by nerves. The conference venue was the county fairgrounds, its main arena transformed for the demonstration. As they unloaded Thunder from the trailer, they could see the stands filling with professionals who held the power to change other troubled kids' lives. "There's my dad," Devon whispered, spotting a well-dressed man sitting in the front row. 3 weeks and 2 days sober. "My mom's here too," Tyler added, gesturing to where Maria Rodriguez sat in her waitress uniform, having switched shifts to attend. "First time she's seen what I do here." Marcus scanned the crowd, tension visible in every line of his body. His mother hadn't shown up for their court date the previous week. No one had been surprised, but the pain was still fresh. "Focus," James reminded them gently. "This isn't about who's watching. It's about showing them what's possible when someone believes in you." Sarah appeared with their cue cards, but the boys shook their heads. "We don't need them," Marcus said. "This is our story. We know it by heart." The arena fell silent as James stepped into the spotlight. "What you're about to see isn't just a demonstration of horse training. It's a testimony to the power of second chances, told by 3 young men who once stood on the brink of a very different future." Thunder entered first, his coat gleaming, his movement confident. The audience stirred, murmuring at his obvious health and presence. Then Tyler stepped forward, beginning their story. "8 months ago we did something unforgivable," he began, his quiet voice carrying in the hushed arena. "We hurt this horse for fun, because we were angry, because we could. We thought it meant nothing. We were wrong." Devon moved to Thunder's side, demonstrating the grooming techniques that had taught him patience. "We came here expecting punishment. Instead, we found purpose. Every brushstroke, every gentle touch became a chance to prove we could be better than our worst mistakes." Marcus approached with the medical kit, his movements sure and practiced. "Thunder's injuries healed faster than our guilt, but he taught us something incredible, that trust once broken can be rebuilt, that healing is possible if you're brave enough to try." The demonstration flowed seamlessly, each boy showing different aspects of their work. Tyler's gentle precision with feed and care routines, Devon's transformed anger channeled into protective strength, Marcus's dedication to healing, both Thunder's and his own. Then came the moment they'd practiced most carefully. One by one, they recreated their first encounters with Thunder, but this time showing how they'd learned to approach with respect, with care, with understanding. "We can't change what we did," Devon said, his voice thick with emotion, "but Thunder taught us we could change who we are." The arena was absolutely silent as Marcus demonstrated the medical checks that had become his specialty. His hands moved with confident gentleness, showing how completely the angry, destructive boy had transformed. "Every scar has a story," he explained, indicating the barely visible marks on Thunder's flanks. "Ours is about more than just mistakes and consequences. It's about the courage to face what you've done wrong and the strength to make it right." Tyler's turn revealed how deeply he'd connected with Thunder's therapy work. He showed how the horse responded to emotions, how he helped troubled kids find calm. Sometimes, Tyler said, the best way to heal yourself is to help heal others. As they moved through the final sequences, their transformation was undeniable. 3 troubled boys had become capable young men. Their past actions transformed into wisdom they could now share. Thunder performed flawlessly, his trust in them absolute. Every response, every willing movement showed the audience exactly what was possible when punishment was replaced with purpose. Devon's father sat straighter, genuine pride replacing his usual criticism. Tyler's mother wiped tears as she watched her son demonstrate quiet confidence he'd never shown before. And though Marcus's mother wasn't there, the empty seat seemed to matter less now. He had found his real family. James concluded the presentation. These young men came to us because they hurt a horse. They're leaving us as teachers, healers, and living proof that change is possible. The only question is, will we give other troubled youth the same chance? The arena erupted in applause, but the boys barely noticed. They were focused on Thunder, on each other, on the incredible journey that had brought them here. "That's my son," they heard Devon's father telling someone proudly. "The one who knows all about proper horse care. Tyler," Maria Rodriguez called out. "Mi hijo, I had no idea. You are so good with them." Marcus stood quietly with Thunder, one hand on the horse's neck. James approached slowly. "Your mother missed something amazing today," he said softly. Marcus smiled slightly. "Maybe, but the right people saw it." The demonstration had ended, but their story hadn't. This was just the beginning of who they could become. The aftermath of the demonstration brought a whirlwind of change. As the arena cleared, professionals swarmed James with questions about the program, but he directed them to the real experts, the 3 boys who had lived it. "Tell them," he encouraged. "Tell them what really makes this work." Devon found himself explaining to a group of juvenile court judges how the program had succeeded where traditional punishment had failed. His father stood nearby, listening with growing understanding. "It's not about breaking you down," Devon explained, his usual attitude replaced by passionate conviction. "It's about building you up. Every task has purpose. Every success, even small ones, shows you who you could be." Tyler, despite his natural shyness, spoke to social workers about the importance of practical responsibility. "You can't just tell kids they matter," he said quietly. "You have to show them how they can matter, give them real ways to prove their worth." Marcus's audience included foster care administrators drawn by his obvious transformation. "Kids like us," he told them, one hand resting on Thunder's neck. "We're used to being the problem. Here, we got to be part of the solution." But the real impact became clear when a group of teenage observers approached. Kids currently in the juvenile system, wearing detention center uniforms. "Is it true?" one girl asked Marcus. "You really did something that bad, and they still gave you a chance?" "Better than that," Marcus replied. "They gave us a purpose. Now we help other kids find theirs." The detention center supervisor watched with interest as his charges connected with the boys. These teens, usually defensive and distant, were asking genuine questions, showing real interest. "We're always looking for alternative programs," he told James. Seeing results like this, Sarah overheard Devon explaining to a troubled youth how grooming horses had helped him control his anger. "It's like they're holding a mirror up to you," he said. "You can't lie to a horse. They know if you're angry or scared, so you learn to handle those feelings differently." Tyler found himself surrounded by younger kids, demonstrating how to measure feed correctly. His natural patience shone as he explained the importance of precision, of caring enough to do things right. "Your son has quite a gift," a child psychologist told Maria Rodriguez. "This kind of natural empathy, combined with practical skills, it's exactly what troubled youth need." Thunder, the catalyst for all this change, stood calmly amid the activity. Various kids approached him under the boy's supervision, each contact a small lesson in trust and respect. "Look at them," Sarah said to James. "They're not just reformed, troubled kids anymore. They're leaders." James watched as Marcus expertly guided a defensive young boy through his first interaction with Thunder. The same gentle patience that had once helped Marcus heal was now helping others. Devon's father approached, 3 weeks sober, and seeing his son clearly perhaps for the first time. "I had no idea," he admitted. "All this time I thought he was just playing with horses, but this is real work, important work." "Yes," James agreed. "The question is, will you stay sober long enough to see what else he can achieve?" The challenge was clear, but for once Devon's father didn't bristle. He watched his son demonstrate a complicated grooming technique to an attentive audience, pride gradually replacing his usual criticism. Tyler's mother had to leave for her next shift, but not before seeing her son receive an offer to help develop youth programs at other facilities. "Mi hijo," she whispered, hugging him. "You found your path." As the day wound down, the 3 boys found themselves back with Thunder, their circle now expanded to include some of the troubled teens who'd watched their demonstration. 8 months ago, Marcus told their rapt audience, "We thought hurting him would make us feel stronger. Now we know. Real strength comes from helping heal what's broken, in others and in ourselves." The sun was setting when James finally gathered them for a private moment. "You understand what happened today? You didn't just show them a program that works, you showed them it's possible to change your whole story." Devon looked at his father, standing tall and sober, actually listening to a counselor about support programs. "Some stories change more than others," he said softly. Tyler watched the last of the troubled teens leave, many of them already signed up for future programs. "We're really going to help train them?" "You already are," Sarah replied. "Every person who saw you today now knows change is possible. That's how healing spreads." Marcus gazed at Thunder, remembering the angry boy who'd once hurt him. "Think we'll ever fully make up for what we did?" "You already have," James said firmly. "But more importantly, you've turned it into something bigger than yourselves. That's the real transformation." 1 year after that first fateful day at Redemption Ranch, 3 young men stood in the morning sun, watching a new group of troubled teens arrive for their first session. Thunder, still the heart of the rehabilitation program, grazed peacefully. In his paddock, his scars long faded, but his impact permanent. Marcus, now James's official assistant and a certified youth counselor in training, stepped forward to greet the newcomers. His mother had never returned, but he'd found something more valuable, a purpose that wouldn't abandon him. "Welcome to Redemption Ranch," he said, recognizing the fear and defiance in their eyes. "I know what you're thinking, because I stood right where you are, thinking the same things. But this place, it changes everything." Devon, whose father had maintained his sobriety for 9 months now, handled the orientation. His designer clothes were long gone, replaced by well-worn work gear that showed honest use. He'd discovered that teaching others patience had strengthened his own. Tyler, balancing college preparatory classes with his ranch duties, led the first safety demonstration. His family's financial situation had improved since Maria had been promoted to restaurant manager, partly due to his own growing stability and success. James watched his former students become teachers, their past mistakes transformed into wisdom they could share. The ranch had expanded, funded by organizations who'd witnessed their demonstration. New horses, new troubled youth, new chances for change. "Remember," Marcus told the nervous newcomers, gesture encompassing the ranch, Thunder, and his own transformed life. "Everything here has a purpose, including you, especially you." Thunder raised his head, nickering softly at the new arrivals. Same gentle spirit, same willingness to trust. the perfect mirror for lost souls, learning to believe in second chances. The story of three cruel kids who kicked a horse for fun hadn't ended with their rehabilitation. Instead, it had become a beginning, not just for them, but for every troubled youth who followed their path to redemption. Because sometimes the worst mistakes lead to the best chances to change, if you're brave enough to take them.